You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and there's a lot to get to today. 3 football stories, 2 baseball stories, and 2 hockey stories. But seeing as though Sunday is the Super Bowl, I will start with football. And the big news there is that the Browns finally have a GM. I don't know why they hired the GM after the head coach, but whatever. Dysfunctional organizations do dysfunctional things. And the Browns decided to hire Andrew Berry. Now, let me just say that by all accounts, Berry is a very smart guy. He seems to have a great reputation, and he worked with the Browns before. There is logic to having someone who's familiar with the organization step in to lead the team, especially with this unorthodox setup that the Browns have. As we all know, the GM, head coach, and the chief strategy officer, the former GM of the LA Dodgers, Paul DePodesta, who has been with the team for a long time and has never had a winning season, will report directly to Jimmy Haslam. There's nothing wrong with hiring Berry. Again, he's a very smart guy. He has a great reputation in league circles. And I think he'll do a decent job as GM. But here's the issue, and this is something that I've talked about before. This 3-headed monster that the Browns have. There needs to be a set chain of command. And you cannot have the head coach and the GM and a chief strategy officer, whatever the hell that is, report directly to the owner. This is something I've said before. I feel sorry for Andrew Berry. He has worked for the Browns before, so he at least knows the setup. He knows how to deal with Haslam. This is something that the Browns actually have done before. When Sashi Brown and Hugh Jackson were employed by the Browns, they, along with DePodesta, reported directly to Haslam. Now, I don't know how, if you're Haslam, you take a power structure that resulted in only 1 win and say, you know what, I have an insanely talented roster. I'm going to do that again. This guy is nothing but clueless. It didn't work with Dorsey hiring Kitchens. That's the only issue here. The issue is John Dorsey just whiffed on a head coach. Alright, it happens. You learn from it, and you move on. And I thought that would have been a very appealing job for a coach like, really, I brought this up and I got some heat for it, Bill Cowher or Tony Dungy. You know what? I stand by that. Was it going to happen? No. But how do you not look at that Browns roster with an insanely respected GM and say, yeah, I'm going to pass on that. I'm happy in the booth. Look, if that's what Cowher and Dungy would have done, then fine. No problem. You know, you gotta respect it. But then pivot to guys like Urban Meyer, Lincoln Riley, big names. You had to settle for a no-name offensive coordinator that DePodesta likes. That means he's going to fail. Alright, I have no faith in Paul DePodesta's football opinion. If Paul DePodesta wants to talk to me about baseball, I really have no respect for him there, but I'd be more inclined to listen to him. Look, I'm sure that Berry and Stefanski are smart guys. I'm sure that they know what they're talking about, but be realistic here. There's no way this is going to work. This was the brainchild of a clueless NFL executive that shouldn't be there in the first place. The reason that this happened was because DePodesta wanted Stefanski when Dorsey hired Kitchens. And DePodesta said to Jimmy Haslam, "You should have listened to me in the first place." Haslam agreed, and he got rid of a fantastic GM. DePodesta got his man in Stefanski now, and he brought in a guy in Berry who he knows, who he trusts. Look, it's nothing against Berry and Stefanski. I just don't think they're going to do a good job in Cleveland. How can you function in that power structure? If you put Berry and Stefanski on any other team, if you hire Berry as the GM and he led a thorough search and landed on Stefanski, fine. I'd have confidence in that. But with this power structure, with Paul DePodesta having a meaningful role, there's no way this is going to work. And I feel so bad for Browns fans here. I really do. 2 years ago, 7-9, with a rookie quarterback and a rookie running back, everything's looking up. They take a step back, 6-10, but you know what? You still have the pieces there to do something. Now, it doesn't matter how good the roster is. With this current setup, it's going to implode. The minute there's any kind of rough patch, you're going to have DePodesta pointing fingers, Berry pointing fingers, and Stefanski pointing fingers. This isn't going to work. They are going to sabotage the careers of Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and David Njoku. All because Dorsey just got the hire wrong. Which again, happens. Look at the list of Hall of Fame GMs and find me a career where that GM never whiffed on a head coach. George Young hired Ray Handley. It's kind of amazing when you think about it. I was so optimistic about the Browns 12 months ago. Now, I am insanely pessimistic about them. They are going to collapse like nobody's business. The second and third football stories come from Jay Glazer, and this was from an interview that he did on The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Now, I like Cowherd. I don't listen to his show every day, but I like him. I saw this interview making the rounds on Twitter, so I seeked it out on YouTube, and it's there. It was with Glazer and Kurt Menefee, and it was a fun interview. I liked watching it. But Glazer said a couple things that really made social media take notice. The first was that the Chargers have moved on from Phillip Rivers, and the second is that the Saints view Taysom Hill as their franchise quarterback. I'll start with Rivers, and this is a rumor that we've seen floating around. We know that Rivers sold his home in California and bought a house in Florida. And there's a lot of speculation that he's going to end up in Tampa Bay, which I'm kind of torn on. Bruce Arians has a reputation as an offensive guru. Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions last year. Now, he also threw 30 touchdowns, but still, 30 interceptions. I don't think Rivers will be terrible in Tampa, but I don't think he'll be great there. This certainly won't push the Buccaneers over the edge. I don't think it makes sense to move on to an older quarterback in this case. If you're really trying to make a Super Bowl run, fine. But you can't tell me that Phillip Rivers makes the Buccaneers a Super Bowl contender. If it was the Titans, okay. You know, you got something there. But Phillip Rivers does not make the Buccaneers a Super Bowl contender. He'd make the Titans a Super Bowl contender if they weren't already. I mean, they were the fourth best team in the league last year. They're not better than the Packers. I'm sorry, Titans fans, but you just weren't. That makes sense, but Phillip Rivers to the Buccaneers, that doesn't make sense. But if the Chargers are really going to lose Rivers, where do they go from here? They've got the pieces in place to make a legitimate playoff run. Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry. They're just going to blow everything up? The rumor is that they're going to draft a quarterback at 6. Now, that means, assuming there are no trades, that means that they will get the third best quarterback. So, you have Burrow going 1, either Tua or Herbert going 5 to the Dolphins. It'll probably be Tua. Let's just say Tua for argument's sake. That means that the Chargers are going to end up with Justin Herbert. Is Justin Herbert better than Phillip Rivers right now? Herbert can certainly become a really good quarterback. I like Herbert. I like Herbert a lot, actually. And I know that Rivers had a really bad year last year, but is Justin Herbert going to come in and immediately be better than Rivers was? It's a big, big, big gamble. Look, I understand that the Chargers do need to find the heir apparent to Rivers. I totally get that. But this is a franchise icon. This is the second best Chargers quarterback in history, behind only Dan Fouts. In fact, if you wanted to put Rivers ahead of Fouts, I'd listen to you. And you're just going to let him walk to Tampa Bay? Or Tennessee? Wherever? That's not a good look. You don't want to discard a franchise icon like that. Because that immediately puts a guy like Herbert behind the 8 ball. He immediately needs to be better than Rivers. He does not get the benefit of the doubt of being a rookie. If you made the conscious decision to go from Phillip Rivers to Justin Herbert, with Rivers still playing in the NFL, Herbert needs to be better than Rivers. I understand the need to get younger, and if Rivers was to stay with the Chargers, then please draft a quarterback. Not Herbert at 6. But if you wanted to take a quarterback in the second round, like Jake Fromm, Jacob Eason, Jordan Love, I have no problem with that. I've heard rumors that those guys have actually become first-round talents. I don't see it. I don't like Fromm. I'm just going to say it right now. I think Jake Fromm is going to be a game manager in the NFL. I just see him as Ryan Fitzpatrick. Jacob Eason has talent, but he's certainly not a first rounder. If you're looking for a quarterback of the future, Jacob Eason is the perfect guy for that. The knock on him is just that he's raw. He's not a plug-and-play guy, which is fine for a second-round quarterback. Not in the first round. You can't do that if you're a first rounder. But if you're a second rounder, well, actually, let me rephrase. You can do that in the first round, but you need to be drafted by the right team. Lamar Jackson was not a plug-and-play guy, but because the Ravens were so good, they were able to let him sit and learn the game a little bit more. Unless Eason goes to a great team, he's not a first rounder. Second round, yes. First round, no. Jordan Love is an interesting prospect. He wasn't playing against good talent at Utah State, but boy, I'll tell you, this kid has a cannon for an arm. I mean, my God. This kid missed his call and he should have been a pitcher. He just throws fastballs. Every throw is a laser. It's honestly really fun to watch him play. But again, he's not a first rounder. He's not a plug-and-play guy. We haven't seen enough of him going up against legitimate NFL talent for him to be a plug-and-play guy. He also doesn't have good field vision. He gets too locked on to his primary target, and he doesn't have good eye manipulation. Now, if he lands in the right system with a coach that's willing to work with him and develop him, he can become a really, really good quarterback. But there are a lot of kids that get drafted and are immediately expected to do this, that, and the other right away. And it's honestly really upsetting to me to see. There have been so many quarterbacks that I thought had talent, and they just needed the right coach to get it out of them. But they never were given that opportunity, man. These guys are really good talents, and they're just wasted. There is something to be said about being drafted by the wrong team. Here's my order on quarterbacks as of right now, and then I'll get to Taysom Hill. Kind of went on a tangent here, but here's my order. Burrow, Tua, Herbert. If you wanted to flip-flop Herbert and Tua, you could. That's perfectly fine. I just have Tua ahead of Herbert. I think his raw tools are that much better, and I'm willing to take the chance that he'll come back 100%. If he misses a few games here and there, I'm okay with that. Then there's a sizable gap, and then it's Jacob Eason, Jordan Love, and Jake Fromm. There are some people that are going to put Fromm ahead of Eason and Love because he's more of a sure thing, but he just has an incredibly low ceiling. I see a lot of similarities between him and Ryan Finley from last year. Ryan Finley was viewed as a game manager, a guy who you could put in and wouldn't set the world on fire, but would be competent. And Finley really wasn't. I mean, completed less than 50% of his passes last year, but that's how he was viewed coming out of NC State. That's how I view Fromm. He never had to win games by himself. He always had insane talent with him. I do not have a first-round grade on Jake Fromm. In fact, I don't even have a high second-round grade on him. I really have probably a low second, high third-round grade on him. Alright, on to Taysom Hill. This one is bizarre. Look, I like Taysom Hill a lot. Whenever I see him come on the field, I get really excited because you're going to see him do something really cool. Whether he's just blocking or catching a pass, whatever. He's just a really fun player to watch. But he's not the Saints quarterback of the future. For goodness sake. The guy's going to be 30 years old when the season starts. How many good years are you getting out of him? 5 if you're lucky? I don't care what Hill does as a gadget player. The quarterback still needs to be able to throw the ball, and Taysom Hill, in his career, has only attempted 13 passes. 15 if you count the playoffs. He's a fun player to watch, but he's not a franchise quarterback. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. 30 years old. Yeah, he's gonna come in and immediately be the next Breeze. Oh my gosh, the next Aaron Brooks. Whatever. Oh my goodness. Teddy Bridgewater is 2 years younger than him. The first time I heard that, I actually didn't believe it, but it's true. Teddy Bridgewater is 2 years younger than him. Look, if this was the Saints view Bridgewater as their franchise quarterback of the future, fine, that's not news. That's expected. Taysom Hill? Taysom Hill is not a franchise quarterback. He's a gadget player. He's Brad Smith. He's Tim Tebow. He has a good thing going with the Saints. They use him really well. But if you have him behind center, I don't know how many snaps in a season, 1,000? Whatever. It's not gonna work. Oh man, I hope this isn't true. I really, really hope that when Drew Brees retires, and I don't know when that's gonna be, but I really hope that when Drew Brees retires, the Saints are not gonna have Taysom Hill as their starting quarterback. Oh man. That would be rough. Alright, on to baseball. I'll start with the Starling Marte trade. I like Marte a lot. He had been really underrated for a while, but recently he's gotten more attention. I know that the Mets were really interested in him, although a report that I saw said that the Pirates wanted 2 of their top 5 prospects, and Brody wasn't willing to do that. Now Brody's going to be hesitant to trade prospects? I don't get that. Yeah, they're going to want top talent because you traded all your other top talent. This is what happens, and my friend Nick says this all the time, and he's 100% right. When you trade a package of prospects, it doesn't just cost you those prospects. It costs you everything else that you could have gotten for those prospects. The Sonny Gray trade with the Yankees, God only knows what they could have gotten for Mateo, Kaprelian, and Fowler. God only knows what Jared Kelenic and Justin Dunn could have gotten the Mets instead of Diaz and Cano. All of a sudden, you're now going to show restraint for trading prospects when Marte is better than Cano, better than Diaz, and better than Stroman. This guy is clueless, man. Brody is clueless. He is a snake oil salesman. He could sell ice to an Eskimo. I'll tell you what, Brody, when you're fired from the Mets, and it's going to happen soon, you can work for me. Sell people on this podcast. I get a lot of listeners, but I can always get more. You can have a job with me anytime. But going back to Marte for a minute, really, really underrated player that's finally been getting the recognition that he deserves. The Diamondbacks are going for it, and it's really, really weird to see After they traded Greinke, everyone expected that Robbie Ray would go with the winter meetings. Instead, they brought in Bumgarner to replace Greinke, who's more of a money pitcher than Greinke by far. Bumgarner can handle the spotlight. Greinke can't. And now you've added Marte to a really talented roster? They're going to be a good team next year. One thing that you got to realize about the Diamondbacks, they had 85 wins last year. They finished second in the NL West. Now, granted, that was by 21 games, but that was just because the Dodgers were so dominant. It's not because the Diamondbacks were bad. The Dodgers were just insanely dominant. I applaud what the Diamondbacks are doing. Are they going to make the playoffs? That remains to be seen. I really can't say definitively one way or another, but they're going for it, and I commend them for it. But when you look at the prospects they gave up, and this is more for Pirates fans than anything else, you got two really talented young guns. You know, this is going to be a process for them. This is something that Pirates fans should be used to. They went with a youth movement for most of the 2000s. They tried to go for it in the 2010s. It didn't work. And now they're starting with a youth movement again. Look, the guys who you got, Peguero and Malone, are not going to be Major League ready for a while. Best case scenario, you're seeing these guys not this coming season, not even next season, but the season after. And there's no question that it's going to be really hard to see Marte hitting 20 homers and stealing 30 bases for the Diamondbacks while you're waiting for these guys to make the jump to the majors. But I'll tell you, you got two really good prospects here. Liover Peguero is a four-tool player. He can do everything except hit for power, which is fine, because you don't need your shortstop hitting 30 homers. He can run like nobody's business, really good arm, really good glove, and he can hit. And Brennan Malone is a guy who a lot of people are saying is a future starter. I don't know if I see that in him. He really only has two good pitches, a fastball and a slider. I think his future is in the bullpen. If he makes a concerted effort, along with the Pirates development staff, to learn a third and maybe a fourth pitch, he can be a starter. There's no question about that. But if I had to put money on it right now, I'd say that Brennan Malone is going to be a reliever in the majors. A good reliever, but still just a reliever. All in all, I'm giving the edge to the Diamondbacks here, but Pirates fans have nothing to be ashamed of here. You got two good prospects. You just lost the better player. On to the Astros hiring Dusty Baker now, and this is a perfect move. Now, nothing's official yet. The only thing that's been said is by Bob Nightingale, and it is that the Astros have decided on him to be their next manager. Again, nothing's official yet. The situation is still fluid, but it seems like he's going to be their next manager, so I'm going to address it now. There is no possible way that you can get upset at this. There are only two knocks on Baker, and neither one of them apply to the Astros here. The first one is that he doesn't develop young guns. But the Astros lineup is set for the next 10 years. The only players who they have coming up in their system that can make an impact this year are Forrest Whitley and Brian Abreu. But those guys are probably set as being members of the Astros next year. Baker never liked to displace veterans for young guns. He's not going to have that issue here. And the second one is that he's not successful in the playoffs. I mean, 2002 he failed with the Giants. 2003 he failed with the Cubs. With the Nationals he was terrible in the playoffs. It doesn't matter here. We all know that the Astros aren't going to be better than the Yankees. You know how I know that? Because the Yankees signed one of their two best pitchers. They got instantly worse. It doesn't matter how good Whitley is. He's not going to be Cole. The American League is the Yankees to lose. And I don't see it happening. It didn't matter who the manager was going to be. Baker, Espada, Showalter, Connie Mack, Joe McCarthy, whoever. It doesn't matter. There's no way that this team was going to be able to overcome this and win the pennant. No chance. Us Yankee fans, this is our time. This is our year. I truly, truly believe that the Yankees are going to win the pennant this year. And they have a damn good chance of winning the World Series this year. I'm not going to guarantee it. I'll guarantee a pennant. I won't guarantee a World Series. But back to Baker, this is a guy who does get the most out of his teams in the regular season. And the AL West is going to be tough this year. The Athletics are always pesky, and the Angels got a lot better by adding Rendon. And Baker's a guy who inspires confidence. He's a really smart guy. He does know what he's doing. He'll lead the Astros to an AL West title. He won't let them fold. This is a really, really good move for the Astros. It's the right move for them. The Red Sox should have done this. The Mets should have done this. It's going to be very interesting to see who the Red Sox hire now. Someone had actually asked me. I will say this, actually. I didn't bring this up yesterday. I totally forgot to. There was so much to get to with Kobe. I'm going to be on 90.3 WHPC, my old college radio station, Nassau Community College's radio station, Monday at 3:30 for an interview on their show Lion Tales. It's profiles of distinguished NCC alums. I don't know how anyone can consider me distinguished, but I appreciate the opportunity. I had a lot of fun talking to Linda and Aurora. And I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain. They asked me who the Red Sox manager was going to be. I said I don't know, and I still don't know. So the moral of the story is, good hire for the Astros. Baker will work out. He won't lead them to the promised land in terms of playoff success, but that was never going to happen anyway with the Yankees signing Cole. And listen to WHPC Monday at 3:30 to hear my interview. On to hockey now, and I'll start with the Blue Jackets signing Eric Robinson to a 2-year extension. I like this move for the Blue Jackets a lot. Robinson is finally getting an extended opportunity to show what he can do. And he's put together a good season. 9 points in 31 games. That's not bad for a third or fourth liner. He's also really young. He's 24 years old. And he is insanely fast. I'd love to see him and Barzell go at it in a skate-off. You watch, that's going to be the Islanders' best moment this year. Matthew Barzell winning fastest skater. Because they're going to do nothing in the playoffs. Unless Lamoriello gets off his ass and does something. All in all, good move for the Blue Jackets. The contract is cheap. I like the move. The second hockey story is Marcus Pettersson getting locked up by the Penguins. And, okay, I like this move. I don't love it. He's a really good young defenseman. I like him. Really, really good player. Would fit perfectly on the Islanders. But here's what I'm not crazy about. The money. He's going to be making over $4 million a year with this contract. He's not worth that. He's only going to get about 25 points this year. And if a guy who's making $4 million a year, you want him to get more than that. Now, I understand that that's not the role of the Penguins defenseman besides Chris Letang. They have their insanely impressive forward core for that. But you still want to be able to put the puck in the net if you're making $4 million a year. It's a lot of money to give to a two-way defenseman. But even then, his defense is much better than his offense. Again, I like this deal for the Penguins. They're locking him up long-term. He's the second best defenseman on the team behind Letang. But the contract is just a little too steep for my blood. I don't dislike it by any stretch. I just don't love it. If I had to give this a 1 out of 10 rating, I'd give it, let's say, an 8. Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll give it an 8. Tomorrow, I'm going to be breaking down the latest and greatest in sports, whatever it may be. I don't know what the future holds. What I do know is that I am Jacob Valk saying that when Billy Martin reached for a bar tab, his arm shrunk 6 inches.